Welcome to That's So Intimate,
a podcast where we explore living well through deep, curious conversations.
I'm Sarah, guide at Rad Intimacy, inviting you to remember your sacred self.
I'm Bryan, a guide at Sadhana Yoga School, where we share wisdom for life.
Let's get intimate. Welcome back. We are talking about the word change today. In change, the definition is to make or become different, to shift from one state, condition, or form to another, and transformation, movement, alteration. Why do you think it is that, generally speaking, as humans, we tend to resist the making or becoming different?
I think fear of the unknown. When we go through life, some things feel good and safe or pleasurable, and some things feel unsafe or unpleasurable. And that can create a fear of moving into the unpleasurable or the unsafe. So I think that's the reason that we don't like change, is fear of that or avoidance of that. And it's interesting because change could be for the positive or change could be for the negative. And change, there's that saying, right? Change is the only constant. So change does happen, but we try, at least to some extent, to create stability in our life. And that stability allows our system to relax a bit.
And so it's how you weave together stability and change, because you do need to have both.
Yeah. So what are you saying? We need to have both? Like we get bored if we don't have change, or the change is happening?
I mean, it will happen to you.
Yeah.
Whether you want it to or not, whether you choose it or not. If you just look to nature, you'll see, right? The cosmos, the seasons, like things are constantly moving and changing all the time. In fact, as humans, before we had these safety nets of homes and things, we were nomadic. We were moving and changing based on the elements and where we could find food and water and safety. So it's built into our DNA, right? That yes, in seeking the food, water, shelter, you are seeking some comfort of stability, right? But I think maybe the pendulum has swung a little too far in our modern day culture toward comfort and safety and away from the challenging ourselves toward change, toward growth,
Yet towards personal growth, and then also like towards being a part of the seasonal change or the change of the nature. Because I just think of like strawberries. We want strawberries all year long. We don't want to have that change. Like when in nature, strawberries come in June, in New Hampshire anyways. So that's a change. And then there's the personal growth aspect of change. I think that has to do with what I was getting at earlier, like that safety, like feeling, we can feel a certain safety in where we're at. And often when we grow, we need to move through some, like something that's uncomfortable that we then can become comfortable with. And that's what we call growth, right? Like,
I'm thinking of the extreme of resistance, though. Like if you, in an extreme way, resist any change to your life, it will make things harder. You will likely suffer because you're fighting so hard to keep something as you remember it, or when you were happy, or when, and things just don't work that way. I mean, look at our kids, like every month, like their likes and dislikes, their, change. They're growing like weeds. Like it's what we're meant to be doing. I mean, at some point, our physical bodies might not be growing, but in a way it's changing, right? I mean, we're in our 40s where we're noticing changes. Like it's natural. Change is natural. And so it's like fighting against nature in a way, right?
Yeah, resistance to change could also be called a resistance to reality.
What is?
Yeah.
And what happens, do you think, when we resist what is?
I guess it's like paddling upstream
Yeah.
instead of just going with the flow downstream. So it's more challenging to not adapt to change or to resist change than it is to go with the flow in some ways. But at the same time, that can be challenging personally to grow or to change. We're moving into the unknown, right?
I think about how at these points or precipices of change that you can sort of see coming, checking in with your value system or what you're aligning with, if you have some ability to direct the change,
Mm,
for example, and you might not, but if you do, I think that's really great too, because I look at like our landscape politically, and the change that's happening for us now feels really heartbreaking to a lot of people. And like the change isn't going in this sort of right direction. And so, like, resisting it might feel natural because it's aligned with your values. And maybe resisting it is a good way, it is a good thing to do. And yet, what do you have control over? What can you control in it? And so I think a lot about the balance of our desire to control, control the process of change and control the outcome, and what is and how it may or may not align with our values. You kind of have to be weighing all those things and asking yourself, what's mine to do? Am I overly controlling or resisting the change? Or does this feel right and aligned? I don't know. It's complex, I guess.
yeah, so much in there, right? So we have external change and internal change, change of the world, change of ourselves. So if the world is changing in a way that we want to play a part of and influence, then we need to change the way we interact with the world. I think about that. I've never been super politically active or anything like that, but if I want to, like maybe the external environment, the political environment is changing, I could say, oh, change is inevitable, so I'm just going to go with it. Or maybe it's like, I am changing too, so I need to change the way I interact with the new political environment.
Hmm.
There's no like one way to interpret change as inevitable, right? Like we need to adapt and change. Maybe that's what the lesson is. We need to be a bit more active in times of change. Now, can we keep things the way they are? No, but we can influence how they change.
It's evoking some old school lyrics from my upbringing, Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson, right? So essentially, he's saying, if you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself, like in the mirror, and change. So, kind of like change starts with you. But what if you're resisting the change within you? That's another level of resistance. Or with the people really close to you that you love, right? Like maybe you're really resisting a change that your partner's making in, what they're doing with their life, or well, whatever, or what your kids into, or who they're hanging out with, or something's really bubbling up inside of you and you feel really pulled toward, making a career change or doing something different, moving or whatever it is, but you're just like fighting against it because it sounds hard or you don't really
Mm.
want to do it, right? Like, and so it's interesting to sit with that resistance and get curious.
Yeah, it's making me think like some things we have certain dharma to do, certain action to do, a role that we play in something. Let's say it's a job and the company that we're working at is changing. Maybe they're closing. So we may not be our role, like we may not have a say in that. It's just not our part. So that is an external change that we can, if we resist that external change, it's going to be mostly pointless and we're going to create suffering for ourselves. Or if we kind of roll with that change and adapt and change ourselves due to the external environment, then we can get through that change that is happening much quicker. And, But let's say it's your own company and your role is to like make that company a success or to adapt with it, then you need to, yeah, take that action to allow that company to adapt. So it depends on what our role is, right? So sometimes we have a role, a dharmic role in the change. So it may be considered resisting change because we're really trying to keep things together. Or sometimes our role is to really just adapt to the change.
And on the other hand, what about welcoming change, right? Like I think about like the racial landscape of the United States is more diverse than when we were kids. And I think that's a welcome change. Not everybody views it that way, but I mean, there are some things that we could open our arms wide to and like really like it's like bring it in. We want more of that. And maybe that looks more like an evolution,
Mhm.
right? In a positive way versus like a stagnation. And it brings about an image. I wear a necklace with a butterfly on it. It sort of came as a time in my life as a symbol of like a metamorphosis, a renewal, an awakening, and how they have to go through these stages, these difficult, awkward, cocooning stages to get to a place where they can sort of become the butterfly. And I think change can look beautiful like that. Maybe it doesn't at the beginning. Maybe it's still that scary, unknown piece you talked about, but it can be a gorgeous awakening, right?
Yeah, and often it is not gorgeous during the change,
Yeah.
and it doesn't feel good. We feel some new things, some unfamiliar things, and that can be scary, and it can be uncomfortable, and it could be sad. We can feel those things, but
It makes me think of that awkward growth stage that we have when we're like preteeny or whatever, and we're all like pimply, and it's just like this, like, you're in this, yeah, interim, liminal, like not quite a kid, not quite a young adult. You're just kind of right. And that's sometimes what happens with change is it looks kind of ugly. It's the messy middle. I think Glennon Doyle uses that term. Yeah. So I agree with you. You get that awkward, messy, and maybe people give up then too, right? They go, doesn't feel good. It doesn't look good. Maybe I quit now.
yeah, I mean, that's the resistance to change is that feeling, and then, like, if we let that feeling overwhelm us and go with that, then we resist the change. Like, whenever we start something new, right, we go into a new let's say you're starting yoga, right? You go to a new yoga studio, and you don't know your place. It's total change, right? You don't know anyone there, you don't know the place, and it's a bit awkward, you're going through that change to where you can feel comfortable there. But if we, I guess, like, work through that, and then we get to the other side, and then, "Oh, wow, we have a new community. We have this new sanctuary that we can go to,"
Mhm.
and that's change, right? And that's growth. When you're meeting a new friend, right, you're at any gathering and you meet someone, it can be a little awkward. What do we talk about at first? But if you progress through that small talk and change, and then you change that relationship, and then you can get onto the other side and you have a friend.
Yeah. I think when you're in that like messy middle, I always try to conjure, and not that you can control the outcome, but I try to conjure what do I feel like could be the most beautiful result of this change?
Mm.
And like keep that image in your mind as something to strive for when it feels hard, And thinking about just having somebody in your life that can kind of be in your corner cheering you on when they know what you're aiming to change, right? What they know and it's really important to you and they're really there for like this is a tough day in this, evolution. I got your back. You can do this thing. And saying that to yourself, I think is also super helpful.
So is change always hard?
Well, so right now we're in the northeast of America and the leaves are changing. So I don't know. Is it hard on the trees to let go of their leaves? I don't know. Sometimes it just feels like a natural falling away. And sometimes it can be excruciating. I don't know. I don't think it's always painful. It might be awkward or different, or it might be exciting. I am a weirdo, and most change is like thrilling to me if it's aligned with my values. If it's not, it can feel devastating. So for me, that's a really big part of it, right? Is does this change feel like a beautiful transformation, evolution towards something that feels more true, more aligned, more whatever, whether it's with the earth, with me, with anything, right? If it feels like progress, I'm here for it, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, I remember maybe it was a year ago, I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about change. And if you're thinking about making a change in your life or decision, they said to take into account the change. And if one has more change, let's say all else being equal, but one has more change for you in your life, choose that one because in general, any change on average is going to be a net positive for you in your life.
Mhm.
And your life's going to be richer because of that. So that helps me actually because sometimes is scary and hard, and it's easier to kind of like keep things the way they are and not move to a new city or not change your job or not go to a new class or not try something new or yeah. But if we think like, oh, any change is going to have a net positive for me in my life, and we kind of like seek it out,
Mhm.
it makes sense to me. And mostly because when we change, we we expand our life,
Mhm.
right? Because we allow more options. Like, then I know I can live here and I can live there. Oh, wow. I have more options, right? I don't just have one place that I can live, or I don't just have one job that I can do, or I don't just have one friend, or I just don't have one community, right? We're expanding our capacity.
Mhm. I mean, I think I'm glad you brought up that point because it's excellent for stimulating our brain and the rest of us as humans to have more experiences that are unique. It is a way to expand our awareness, to find stimulation in the maybe dull everyday. We're built for adaptation, right? We're built to have some kind of like agility. And something as simple as like, I'm going to drive a different route home from work today
Mhm.
than the one I normally do. You'll see something new, you'll feel something new, you'll experience something new, and that's good for us. It's good for our overall health, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, something as simple as that, driving a different route, you'll start to see different synchronicities in the world. You're like, oh wow, I maybe you run into a friend, right? And then it's like, wow, that's why I must have it was meant to be, right? Or you see this beautiful sunset, or you see something will happen.
Whereas if you drive the route that you're most used to, you might not notice anything because it's not a new experience. And that's why I love travel so much, is because it's almost as if your senses are heightened.
Oh, for sure.
You're noticing. Yeah.
First day I land in a new country, it's like a week, right?
You're taking it
It's
all
like
in. Yeah.
that first day is so full. Every building, every car, everything is new.
And that's good for us. It's good for our nervous systems. It's good for our brains. I would venture to say, I don't you check the stats on this after the episode, I guess, but I would venture to say the more we do that, especially as we age, the like better health our brains would have, right? Like exposure to more
Mhm,
things, sensory wise, is beneficial, right?
mhm. At the same time, we don't need to travel to get new stimulus. Because I think about this like, yeah, I've traveled quite a bit, so some years I'll be like, "Oh, I just wanna change and just to be in one place for a year."
Hmm.
One year I took a year off, and I didn't get on a plane for a whole year, and that was a big change for me. And then it's like, "Okay, I'm gonna plant a garden this year." So that was a change, and, I get to see the seasons. I get to see that newness of change in one place, and I didn't get to see that when I was always traveling.
It makes you more aware of the little things and finding awe or beauty it's also very stimulating and
Mhm.
good for you, right?
Yeah, you can change the time you wake up, switch the order of your morning routine,
Yeah. I mean,
change the way you have your coffee.
it can be little minutia things for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And just notice, get curious. I think it's also about curiosity, right? If you can diminish some of the fear of the unknown, you can get curious about what would happen if I didn't put milk in my coffee this morning. You might
Mm.
hate it, and then but like, I don't know, or whatever the little changes are, right? Like maybe I'm going to have cereal instead of toast this morning or whatever, and get curious, like, how is my energy 2 hours later? Like, huh, you know, like you can just experiment. It's a little bit of a way to be a little bit of an explorer, experimenter.
Yeah, I would say in general, I like a routine and, like, I figured out the best way to make my eggs in the morning, so it's, like, the most efficient way, it's just the best way to do it, right? Or I like I like things a certain way, the routine for me, so I would say I'm not a big change person. Are you maybe the opposite and you're a big change person? Like, you love change, not so much routine?
Yeah, yes, I find real like life-giving sustenance. I feel like I'm more alive when I do unique, different
Mm.
things. So if I'm stuck in that there's only one right way to make eggs, then I miss out on the opportunity of trying it a dozen different ways. And maybe you already have, and maybe you've decided that they're lesser than. But imagine all the combinations of things you could do with eggs. I mean, endless, really. Like, so many things you can do with eggs that it's, I mean, there's comfort though, and the reliability of knowing I buy these eggs from this store every Wednesday and it's this brand and I come home and I use this pan at this temperature and I get this end result, right? Like, so in a lot of our lives, we really can't control the outcome. And, even in the scenario I'm giving, like maybe the supplier didn't get the eggs to the store that
Yeah,
day, right? So
so
change
sometimes
is forced on you, but sometimes it feels good to have the small things be reliable in the outcome.
Mhm,
So that can be reassuring. But for the most part, I'm like really excited to shake it up whenever I can.
mhm.
That feels fun to me. Like a lot of fun. Like I'm getting excited thinking about, ooh, what can I shake up today? Which might be annoying for people who are kind of like, pipe down. Like, we just want a calm day. I don't know. I find energy in it though. For me, it gives me vitality. Like it feels exciting. It makes life exciting. And I'm not talking about huge big change. I mean, hey, like I was just talking about going on travel in the world for a year. That would be a humongous change. And I can get super excited about something like that. But I'm talking about everything from big to small.
Mhm. Yeah, so this morning, I ran my first road race in my life
Woot woot.
at 45. So, that's a big change for me, right? It was really I don't necessarily know that I had active resistance to it, but I obviously had some resistance to it because I never did it. It's not like I never came across an opportunity
Hmm.
and nobody ever invited me to join or something. I just never did for whatever reason.
Well, let's pick that apart. Why do you think it is that you resisted it? Did you think it wasn't for you? Did you think it wouldn't be fun? Did you think it would be painful? Like, what was the.
Yeah, I think I don't like running for running's sake. Every few years, I'll get on a running kick and I'll be like, oh, I'm going to run. And the last time it happened maybe was 3 years ago. And I ran probably a few times a week for a month or two, and that felt nice, but then I don't know why I stopped, but then I did.
Yeah.
I think I just didn't really identify as a runner, and then also because I don't run that much, and normally the sports that I do pretty well at them, so it's kinda like I know I won't be a top runner because I don't run, so that probably stopped. Like, I think, like, something like that would be, like, to win.
Mm.
But this one, it was a marathon. Wasn't doing the full marathon, doing the kids marathon with my son. So it was 1.2 miles. But
Big difference.
so it clearly wasn't for me to run as fast as I could. It was just to be there. But it was so fun to be there with, I don't know, I didn't count, but it seemed like a couple hundred kids there.
And then all the
And then all
spectators
the
and
adults.
volunteers. Yep.
So there might have been like 500 people there running
Oh, yeah.
in the group. And it was so fun just running that 1.2 mile. And then we finished at the official marathon end. So they
So
had
much
this
energy.
great archway and music and cheering you on. And
Cowbells, and it was like a party.
yeah, it was like a party. So it's like, oh, that's why people do it. They do it just to be a part of it. So, but it's a big change, because now I'm thinking, oh, maybe you could do the turkey trot that's coming up or something,
Yeah.
and not do it to win or anything, just do it for fun.
For the fun of it, yeah.
So it's a change, but it took a long time to get that start going.
But see how that changed your perspective, because your son was signed up for this. You're like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm going to support him. I'm going to do it with him.
Yeah.
And it shifted something inside of you about how you perceive a road race now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I guess that my experience is it's just like that first start is often the hardest, that first
For
step,
sure.
because there's some uncomfortability of what is it like. But then once you get going on a change and try something new,
Hmm.
then it opens up, and yeah, it can change your life, like when we make a change.
And you bring up a good point, is you were comfortable in not having run a race. There was like, you're like comfortable with having missed out on that opportunity, I guess, until you did it. And then it became more comfortable for you to do it rather than not do it.
Mm.
And then it's sort of like a light switch. It sort of just flipped it,
Mm-hmm.
where it's not scary and unknown anymore. It's like, oh,
Yeah, it expands my world, right? Because now I can not run a race, or I could run a race.
and not based on fear of the unknown, based
Yeah.
on whatever's going on with you, if you have the time, like other factors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting, just to think like, wouldn't it be cool if you could like do a profession for one day, just like every profession? That'd be really interesting. I just picked a profession as an example, but like live in a foreign country for one day or
Mm-hmm.
1 week in different, like, then maybe there wouldn't be like wars. Maybe there would, you know what I mean? Maybe we would just all like love each other a little bit more and have more compassion for people if we quite literally tried to live like a local in a different country, or tried to see how hard it would be to do XYZ job. It would, yeah, I think a lot of it is like fear of the unknown, whether it's other people. When you think about like hate, right? I think it all comes down to fear of the unknown. So if we were just able to like expose ourselves to all the things, which, realistic is not realistic, but if we say yes more, I think, to like somebody invites you to something that you've not done, not letting fear get in the way. And maybe it won't change you, maybe it will, but just try to say yes to see what happens, be curious. I've got a quote attributed to Buddha: change is never painful. Only the resistance to change is painful.
So it's our experience and the way that we interpret it. And if we have resistance mindset, or if we resist. So that's interesting, thinking about nature. Does nature resist change? Does a tree resist the change? Does a squirrel resist the change as they gather the nuts in the summer?
I think about that with procrastination. I was a person in college that I think it was like a little bit of the thrill of, can I do it all? And can I write this whole long paper in 12 hours? As like, I don't know, a way to put a little fire under my bum about it. But that's interesting. Procrastination. Like, what is it that you're really resisting? There's some definite resistance there.
Yes, when we procrastinate, I guess just the uncomfortability or the fear of doing something is less than the joy of not doing it, right? And then like that crosses over, and that fear of not doing it gets higher as the time gets closer to the deadline, and then we have to do it. Yeah, everyone procrastinates. So is procrastination a resistance to change?
Might be.
I guess often we procrastinate on things that we aren't too excited about.
Or we're afraid we're gonna not do a good job at it, maybe? One or the other?
Mm-hmm.
Resistance, here's another little quote, resistance to change often shows us where we're most attached. Surrender to change often shows us where we're most alive.
So that's saying that if we're resisting something, we're really attached to things being the way they are in that moment.
Yeah.
So if we resist moving to a new location, we're attached to the previous location.
Or you're attached to your identity as, fill in the blank.
Mm.
And you are afraid of that. I was just talking about that because we were running the race this morning, and I was a runner growing up. And I was sort of known that way in school and everything. And when I stopped running at some point halfway through college, I did have an identity crisis. It's like I was sort of like, that runner girl is how people knew me if they didn't really know me. And it's like, well, then who am I now? What do I do now? Like, how will I be known now?
So did that attachment, did you end up running longer? Did you resist that change and end up running longer than you would have if you didn't have that attachment and like been more open to change and allow that in the flow, surrender to your change?
I think I knew pretty early on when I ran, Division I college. It was pretty serious that it just didn't feel like warm and welcoming, like a family, like it did in high school. I knew pretty quickly that like, okay, they mean serious business. Like this, it felt like a business, right? It was like run that way, less personal, more business. And it kind of lost a lot of its appeal to me. It was a little thrilling. Some of the change was thrilling, right? Like I was in college, they would fly us to different schools. We'd get little stipends when we were there for food. We were sponsored by Nike and we got new gear. Like, so some part of it kept me kind of looped in, like, like it felt like shiny and new, but ultimately, I think I realized this isn't for me. And so maybe it took me a little longer to get there. Sometimes you can get really comfortable in a place, especially if it's like feeling like it's giving you some sort of gifts, whether that's like an identity, whether that's literal things. I know people say the golden handcuffs with work, right? Where it's a kind of a cushy job. You get paid really well. You really don't like it. It doesn't feel aligned for you, but you feel a little bit like, oh, you have the car payment, you have the house payment. You've set up this lifestyle based on the income that you're now getting. And so people feel kind of stuck. And so sometimes it can feel that you can be wooed into not changing based on the comfort that you have in the present.
Yeah, and then this is like interesting to think about when we change internally. So something shifts, like, okay, I'm no longer really aligned with this running thing,
Right.
racing. But the external manifestation of that to actually make the change in the world is often delayed,
Yeah. And what
right?
do people say something about that time between knowing and doing?
Yeah.
If you can make that smaller, shorter, it will be more beneficial. But sometimes the knowing takes a really long time to unfold. Like it depends on how attuned you are, how self-aware you are, and how much your intuition is speaking to you or you're listening to it.
Yeah, it depends how much we're listening to it and how much we trust it.
Mm-hmm.
Because we often get this intuitive knowing of this is not quite right for me anymore, right? I'm ready for the next step in my life, the next phase. Maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's a job, maybe it's location,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's running or not running. And yeah, that inner knowing we get pretty, that happens first. And sometimes it's like a whisper, like, time for some change, time for some change. And if we listen then there's no resistance. It's like, okay, I need to let go of some things that are in my life, and maybe that's scary because those things are comfortable and it's like secure, and I know that. And then moving into the unknown, but sometimes we're able to do that, sometimes we're not. And then the idea is that if that's still true for us, that we need to make a change, it's going to happen inevitably. It's just whether or not we make it gracefully near the beginning, or if we wait, then maybe let's say it's a work thing, maybe we don't put in our full effort at work because we're
Mm,
not fully into it. So we kind of like, we have, say, like self-sabotage, right? So maybe maybe you show up late or you don't put in your full effort. So then maybe eventually you get fired, and that change is going to happen externally.
mm.
And that can be sometimes harder or more dramatic, but that's what we need because we're not listening to our intuition.
I think we've gotten really good at trying to suppress pain, suppress bad memories, suppress that knowing, right? Like we've gotten really good at doing that, whether it's through healthy or unhealthy means, right? We might overexercise, we might overdrink, we might overeat, all kinds of things that we can do to like stay in something that we know might not be right or to keep from feeling something that's painful, right? And then your body does respond though. Like I remember being stuck in a job or felt like I was stuck. That was the feeling I got, right? Stuck in a job that I knew I didn't want anymore. It manifested itself as like illness. I started getting all these weird sort of symptoms. I started, getting dizzy. It was like all these like physical manifestations. It was like your body's quite intelligent, right? And it's like alarms go off, like you're not listening to me. And sometimes it's in smaller ways, like you're pushing yourself too hard so you'll get a cold, like you've mentioned that before, for sure. It's like your body telling you to slow down. And so your body can force the change in a way. But I think a lot of people deal with chronic pain, with all kinds of like maybe sometimes bizarre or negative outcomes to their health that just come up because we're not paying attention to what might need to shift.
I couldn't agree with that more, right? Like our bodies, I mean, in general, I think that we should be pain free and we should feel rested and energized in our life. And if we're not feeling that way, something's a bit off, right?
Mhm,
And then we get illness.
mhm. I just had a family member go to the emergency room in the middle of the night with a panic attack, not knowing if it was something more severe. And we were talking about, politics and tuning in, how much you tune in and pay attention to the changing landscape there can really affect your internal state. And so to me, as an observer, I think like it seems clear the change that might benefit her the most health-wise would be to be less in touch with what's going on politically might benefit her health, right? It was
Mm.
almost as if the stress was bubbling, 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 and it just becomes too much. And that's your body telling you, this is too much. Something must change, right? And how much we listen to that and get curious about what change would benefit me most in terms of my health and otherwise.
Yeah, it's all feedback. It's all feedback for us.
Hmm.
And yeah, I noticed in the last few months, my hamstrings have been a bit more tighter. And it's like, okay, I got to make a change. Like I shouldn't feel like this. So I got to start doing some more yoga.
But then there's the reality that we're aging too. So, like, there are naturally the change that happens is just parts of our body that degrade a little bit more. Like, our skin is less elastic. We might, and I'm not saying you live with tightness and think that that's, normal because you're aging. You don't have to give into it, but some part of it is a natural change too, right?
Well, I noticed that maybe I was when I turned 40, I noticed I got a couple injuries and I was like, oh, something's different, right? So that was a change, let's say a aging change.
Hmm.
So so then I can have two ways. I can kind of like, I guess I can resist it and then go get injured and kind of like deny it, and I'll
Mhm.
get injured and then I'll have to, I don't know, live in injury. Or I can adapt to that change. And it's like, okay, I gotta change. So I started like actively working out a bit more, actively doing things to get stronger, to stay stronger. Cause it was like, I used to be able to just always be strong. And now I have to work harder to stay strong. And so I see that as more of like adapting or like going with the flow of life and making change in order to stay in that flow. If I didn't change, yeah, then I would degrade.
Mhm.
I don't, I mean, things definitely change when we age, like when we go from 1 to 2, 5 to 6, 10 to 12,
50 to 60.
50 to 60,
Yeah.
but if we adapt and do life differently, we
Mhm.
can thrive at every age. If we eat the same way when we're 50 as we did when we're 20, we can't expect things to stay the same.
Mhm.
We need to exercise differently, sleep differently, eat differently, socialize differently. We need to adapt to the way things are. But I think we can thrive at every age.
Yeah, and then in our modern Western culture, we like to really resist the aging process from an aesthetic and sort of ego perspective, right? I think it's a lot about feeling like, for me as a woman, it's like the epitome of beauty is probably a woman in her 20s, right? And so that can be hard as you age and you feel like you lose some of that value or some of that beauty, and you really attach tightly to the identity of being a beautiful young woman or something, right? And then you have to kind of sit with, oh, well, now I'm in middle age, or maybe, eventually now I'm a senior citizen. And what does that mean for me? And how can I maybe age with grace and, not fight it at every turn? Yeah.
I think that as to same as like adapting, like or accepting the change and then being fully yourself at every age.
Yeah.
What are my gifts at this age? What do I need to do to take care of myself at this age? What do I have to offer the world at this age? And
But
it's not the same at
yeah.
different 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Life is different. Your body is different.
Mhm.
So if we pretend and try to be in our 20s our whole life, then it's going to be a struggle.
But it's like, I was talking about how I was closely identifying as a runner when I was growing up. Like, it really does feel like a loss of identity sometimes if you feel closely tied to getting some sort of like social benefit from being young and pretty,
Mm.
or young and handsome, whatever. And then you don't feel that way. You don't turn as many heads. You don't get that sort of privilege that a young person might get. It's interesting to kind of sit with because it is like a death of one version of yourself and a birth of another, I guess. And sitting with that is something.
Yeah, I think it's similar to just expanding your world, right? It's like if you identify if as a narrow, just like attractive person and that's your identity, then you need to maintain that. But if you're multidimensional and you're attractive or semi-attractive, but you're also really fun to talk to, or if you're really smart at solving a certain problem, or if you're really compassionate and can comfort people, or if you're really intuitive, it's like we all have different gifts and we're multidimensional. And if we expand and appreciate and put forth those things, then the loss of 20-year-old beauty is a lot less on our ego, right? Because we're more expansive than that.
But I think it's a witnessing of your ego and allowing an ego death of sorts, right? Like,
Absolutely, yeah.
it's something to grapple with, especially in our culture, right? Where you're constantly being fed, beauty products and anti-aging this and that. And, you know, yeah. So. I have a quote, a Rumi quote. Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself. Start with the man in the mirror, basically, right? Like we were talking about Michael Jackson's song. So yeah, it just brings up the whole quest. I have one tattoo that I got almost a year ago that for me resembles the path of life, like the journey that we're on, the personal growth, the evolution. Basically, I'm so excited about change, I had to tattoo it on my arm, you know? But it's this wonky, nonlinear path of being curious about who you are, what your gifts are, what's next for you, how you can overcome fear to do something that feels truer for you. You know, it's this beautiful metamorphosis, this life of ours, if we sort of allow that.
I'm thinking that the largest perspective that we have, the larger that our perspective, the easier we can cope with changes in one aspects of our lives. I just think about traveling. So if we like, I've traveled a lot in the last 10 years, but I've always had a home base. So like I had both. I had the constancy of a home base, but then also the ability to change and move and travel. So it's like having that home base provided me with the comfort, like that knowing. It's like I knew like, okay, I'm traveling now, but I also have a home base. It's like a very expansive perspective.
Hmm.
If we view ourselves, yeah, same thing as we age. If we view ourselves as multidimensional, our age is just one aspect of ourselves. It's not our whole identity.
Mhm.
If we zoom out even more, like from the yogic perspective and see ourselves as a manifestation of consciousness, then, I mean, does the universe really, does it really care? Does it really matter if I wear a certain shirt today or not? No, it doesn't matter. Right. So, but if I stay like in a small perspective, like the clothes that I wear might seem very important if I have a important meeting or event or talk, but a larger perspective, it doesn't matter at all what I wear.
Hmm.
So I'm just thinking like the larger perspective we can have, the easier it is to go with the flow for the small changes that are happening. And we see the changes as being relatively small.
And probably it's easier to accept some change or be open to change when we can witness it in others. I mean, you could witness it going well or not well, you know, from our perspective. But yeah, I think people like to champion someone who bravely endeavors to make a big shift in their life, and then they're happy on the other side. And that's like a great, I guess, motivation to try something new. And I think also that one of the biggest gifts in our life is the opportunity to work with a shifting and changing other. So in partnership or relationship, you know, I'm thinking like long-term romantic partnership is your biggest playground for change, I would say.
Hmm.
I have a good quote that kind of sums this up, I think, from inspired from Bell Hooks' work. And she says, in a relationship, when we shift from asking, how can I get my needs met, to how can I grow with you, the bond deepens and expands.
Mm.
So it's seeing your partner as hopefully a secure base and a safe space to be yourself, but also if you're together for decades, knowing that both of you will change in different ways. And it's like each as individuals and together, and like the structure of the relationship could change. I mean, so many things could happen, right? You could become parents, you will age, you'll go through life with this
Hmm.
other person. And what a gift of supporting each other, witnessing each other, having, you know, comfort pains, and that, you know, you're going to have that messy middle, and it's great practice. relationships are great practice for change.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this quote that I heard. It stuck with me. Now I translate it kind of like my sense is like the masculine energy likes consistency and doesn't love change, wants stability. And feminine energy is all about change,
Mm-hmm.
just constantly changing. Feminine energy is creativity. It is like creation.
Fluid.
Masculine energy is like sustaining and keeping things constant. So there's that saying like men want women like their woman partner to stay the same, and women want their male partner to change.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to think like both are not going to be great attitudes, right? We need to allow both. Like people
Mm-hmm.
just people to be people, right? We can't want somebody else to change, and we also can't want somebody else to stay the same. We need to just accept people where they are at. But it's interesting to think of like what's the masculine energy in us that wants things to stay the same, and what's the feminine energy in us that wants change,
Mm-hmm.
right? And to be, yeah, feel the emotions, like our emotions are always changing, right? And we tend to associate that with more feminine energy, right? We're more emotional. And masculine energy is just like more stoic or more solid.
Yeah, I think what you're getting at is it's not really helpful to try to force someone, push someone, and get resentful when they don't change, right? Like trying to force someone into change or hold somebody back
Yeah.
from change that they really want to see in their
Yeah.
life. And so, how can we hold each other with love and compassion and be okay loving them through an evolution or, I don't know, a staying the same, right? Like, how can we? I think part of it is that we're afraid. We're afraid that, like, say if somebody's changing, that they'll change so much that they'll fall out of love with me or that the relationship won't be anymore.
Or that things were good the way they are, right? I
Or
liked,
the inability to see that it could be better if it
yeah,
changed, right? Like,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it's about having an open-minded approach to the whole thing, right? I think if you go in, and I'm guilty of this, like you go into a long-term relationship or a marriage or something and you think, today how it is how it's gonna be, right? And you get sort of like stuck in the rut of, well, this is who I married and this is what I expected and this is what I wanted. So like, why are you like messing with the contract? Why are you changing with like, what's up with that? Or sometimes people see the potential in a partner rather than see who they really are and like want them to meet or exceed that potential instead of allowing them to be wherever they're at, right? Like, so it's both.
Which one did you fall into? Wanting things to be more the way they were at the beginning, or seeing more the potential and wanting your partner to grow when you were married?
For sure, the latter. I mean, I think the only thing that I might have wanted to be similar to the beginning is that sort of spark, right? That like new relationship energy that we
Mm,
all love, right? I think it's pretty universal that most couples are like, ooh, remember those first few months when we met and we were just like so giddy and all the hormones were going and like to revive that feeling, most people would want that. So in terms of staying the same, quote unquote, like, yeah, that, but like I'm a shifting, growing person and I felt like I was running in one direction while my partner was kind of staying the same.
hmm
And in a way, I think I felt criticized for that change, and it probably actually held me back more out of fear of, yeah, probably losing the relationship because I was really wanting to like break out of that cocoon and felt like I couldn't,
hmm
So there's probably some stagnant periods for a while. And who were you?
I think I was stereotypical male of, yeah, wanting my partner to stay more the same as the way as when we first met.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, part of me did. I've felt that energy like, yeah, things have changed a lot. Like, why couldn't they go back to where things were, yeah, more, yeah, like that
Uh-oh, make our
newer.
relationship great again? Oh, you can't
I
reverse the clock. That's the
I
truth, right?
definitely didn't say that. But yeah, so it's interesting. We kind of both fall into that stereotype.
Yeah,
So this is, I think, a very big challenge that all relation or most relationships have,
yeah.
right? Whether they're,
But it's not always gendered
yeah,
that
whether,
way.
yeah,
It's
no,
just that
whether it's,
usually one person is the
yeah,
change person and one person is
yeah,
the steady person,
yeah, one,
typically.
yeah. So then how do we deal with that?
Well, I think it's interesting. So there's two people in the partnership, but then there's the third, which is the relationship itself. And I think what's great about focusing on the relationship rather than the individuals is that you can see it as a separate entity that you can love and adore. You can love and adore the relationship, but you might not be as like sort of critical or judgmental of that third party. And you can see it as something that needs to be nurtured and see it as something that might need, practice or skills or certain change to keep it healthy, let's say, right? So I think for me, it's easy to focus on that. Like, how do we make the relationship good?
So really focusing on the relationship and not so much the other person.
Right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And there's so many skills there, right? There's so much that we can learn in terms of how to be who we are and to support the other that are just skills of relationship that we weren't taught, right?
So an example of that, just like that reframing would be, instead of, I wish the other person would start doing this, it's like, how can we, like, let's say doing an activity together. Let's say, I wish the other person would do this. Like, what can we find in our relationship
Mm.
that we're going to do together?
Like, I have a really good example. So, say you're just like, he never reaches out and wants to talk. Like, he doesn't care how I'm doing. Like, so there's that blame game of
Hmm.
something's wrong with the other
And you want
person.
them to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm making all the effort. They're not doing it, right. And instead of, naming and blaming and all of that, what we could do is just say, I feel disconnected from you, and I would really like to have an opportunity and a space and a time, a commitment for us to share and get closer. So let's think about strengthening a relationship by having like a weekly or biweekly check-in, right? And here's the things that I would love to like hear about how you're doing or hear about how you feel about the relationship or like whatever the check-in is. And then it's just like a neutral third party thing,
Hmm.
right? It's like I care about you and the relationship. I want it to be better. I want us to be closer instead of like you're not doing X, you
Hmm.
know?
And then another way we can allow, so we can, yeah, have that relationship as kind of like this third thing that we focus on. Makes a lot of sense. Another thing we can do is maybe zoom out with our identity individually and not get so tied up or wrapped into the relationship, and allow things for the other person to change, right? Or not change, right? But just be. But where our identity is not so tied into that, that we resist the change or resist the non change. And we have our life and we're fine, and like, can, we're taking care of ourselves, and we're in a relationship with this other person and they can be themselves.
Mm.
So I think getting solid in ourselves as an individual allows the other person to do the same thing, be that individual. Just like
Hmm.
both things, like really focus on the relationship, but also really focus on taking care of yourself as an individual
Hmm.
and not putting your needs on the other person.
Because often it's about projection too. So when we say they're never doing this or they're always doing this, it comes from like, I think what you're alluding to, like an insecure place within us, but it also can be a reflection of a shadow side of us that we don't want to admit is also part of us, right?
Hmm.
That like we're making it be about another person. It ultimately is always really about what's going on within us.
Hmm.
And with all of this talk of change, I think my my best advice is keep it light. Like, we have this life, right? And maybe if we just take it a little less seriously, try to have a little more fun, try to have a lens of, curiosity and playfulness about the whole thing, we can just like, yep, I failed at that thing. Like, yep, I got all these gray hairs now. Like, yeah, like, yep, that relationship ended. And not that we don't admit things are painful or difficult, but like, we will move on. We will ultimately be okay.
Yeah, so getting out of this perfectionism trap that everything I do has to be perfect because change is going to be imperfect. Maybe we're great at the things we've been doing for the last 10 years because we've been doing it for 10 years. If we start something new, we're not going to be great at it. Maybe it's not going to work the first
Hmm.
time, right? We're trying something new. We're going to stumble. We're going to fall.
So it's about not taking yourself so seriously. Like,
Yeah.
it could be perfection, but just like, if we can just think it's not going to be the end of the world every time something changes, like, it will allow us to come from a more playful space, which opens up all kinds of potential, for like how things could turn out.
And if we, instead of having this expectation that everything should be working out every moment, and if we shift and say, like, oh, we're making a change, we know there's going to be growing pains, right? There's going to be challenges in this change, and just like expect that.
And can you find humor in it
Yeah,
almost? Like,
yeah, and then it's almost like, okay, let's find the challenging moments as quickly and deal with them as quickly as we can, so we can move through it, right? Like,
yeah. And maybe have a laugh about it.
what's
Like,
not working
oh,
about this?
yeah.
Like, and like, let's find 5 things that aren't working, so that then we can just like move to the other side of it.
Hmm. And let me tell you, everyone's been through it. Like, everyone's been through some kind of like painful, awkward change or beautiful change, right? Like, so lean on your friends and your family and talk to them about it. And like, yeah, because
I'm
they too have a story of overcoming or of changing, and maybe overcoming and they were still okay, or maybe they bloomed into something more beautiful.
again, if we're thinking about being more intimate with our family or friends or partners, like sharing about changes that are going on with us in our life,
Hmm.
sharing about changes that we're wanting to make, or sharing changes that have happened.
Hmm.
That's a great place to get on real common ground with people and connect over that.
And I think you and I sort of specialize in this interim space of transformation, this space where either you have this itch that something needs to change, you're not quite sure what it is or how it should look or where you're going, or you do know what it is, but you're just like afraid to get over, not quite able to get over the hump and you just need a little support.
Hmm.
Right. So I would say, like, reach out if you want to talk about that. I think this is like some of the juiciest things of life, honestly. Like, it's hard, but it can be just so beautiful, so rewarding. Like, we don't know what the next chapter is going to be like.
Hmm.
And I think that potential is so raw and so beautiful.
Yeah, along that line, thinking about the people that, I mean, I know that are in the yoga trainings that I teach, I hear over and over again, like having a supportive community in the yoga group helps people through change, like having some support network,
Hmm.
developing a personal practice and having a practice to go to. So it's kind of like having a consistency in a way. It's like, okay, a lot is changing, but I also have my consistent practice.
Hmm.
I know I can go to yoga, or I know I can do
I
meditation.
can always come back to my
Can
breath.
come back to that every day, and I
Yep.
got that for whether it's 10 minutes or an hour every day. I know I can go back to that, and that really, I hear a lot of times that sustained me through that challenging time in my life, through that
Right.
transition time. Like, if I didn't have yoga saved me, that's what we're saying, is
Hmm.
like having that time and space to feel grounded and relaxed and secure and solid and connected to myself through that time really allowed me to get through it.
Yeah.
if we don't have that, it's that much more challenging, right? Both our personal practice and our personal kind of safe haven, and then also having a supportive community. And then, yeah, just having like the tools to persevere through it and get through it are huge for people.
I think we can get through anything together with some self-awareness, some skills, some personal practice,
Mm.
some community. All of these things, I think, just make the difference.
It's way easier. Yeah, you were even mentioning about, yeah, your family member that was having the panic attack.
Yeah.
And it seemed like even just you talking with her for like 10 or 15, 30 minutes, whatever it was, about some decisions that she was kind of like stuck on
Yeah.
in her life, like just talking with somebody else with kind of a neutral position who's not really like stuck in it can help us get through those things. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, just shift this around, right? Whereas when we're stuck, it can feel just overwhelming and we just have this tunnel vision and this is the biggest decision in our life. And what do I do?
Right.
Oh, we talk to somebody. Oh, just do this. Okay.
Overwhelm is a huge
Yeah.
part of it, right?
Yeah.
What happens is we take 5 factors or 10 factors about the decision and we overwhelm our nervous system, right? We can't really focus on what could be the right path when we're overloaded.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be able to just hone in on. I think I tend to be good at thinking about this. Like when I was in business, I'd be like, I'm the 30,000 foot view person, right? People would be stuck in the minutia and the details. And I would be like, so ultimately what we're trying to achieve is like, here's the through line. Here is it simply boiled down. And so it can be really helpful to talk to people who you feel like are like wise, steady, like, I don't know, change maker people that can just be like, oh yeah, make it really kind of clear for you. And I'm sure you all have those friends that you're just like, oh, when I'm having a tough time or I need to talk through something, this is who I want to go to, in your life. And if you don't, we're here. So
Yeah. And we also have ourselves too, right? We have different aspects of ourselves. You can ask yourself, what would
wisest
my
self say.
wisest self say? What would
Yeah.
my self, like, what would this aspect of myself say, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then something I tell myself when I'm kind of in that indecision area is if I'm really in that indecision, there is probably both options are fine, right? If there was a clear winner, I would see it, but both options are fine.
Mm-hmm.
Just choose an option, make that change and move forward. And then if we need to recorrect and the option becomes so clearly the best one, just pivot and move in that direction.
Yeah. Be the change you want to see in the world. That's what Gandhi says. So I don't know. I think if we're saying, think about what what's in your heart right now and what you're really craving to shift for yourself, and like journaling about it, and what could it look like? How can you imagine if you were to make this shift, how it would change your day-to-day life or your path? And think about how you can get there and who you can talk to. And everybody probably wants to shift something.
Yeah, from a yogic perspective, a change in the subtle realm, like the more subtle the change, the bigger impact it has, as opposed to the more gross or the more physical change. So if we make a physical change in our life, it can have a little impact. But if we make a subtle change, like the way we think about something or a belief that we have, that's going to have a bigger impact. The way we perceive, the story we tell about our life, right? So we can have something happen in our life,
Mm-hmm.
and the story we tell about it has a bigger impact than the actual thing that happened. So if we want to make change from a yogic perspective, changing the way we perceive or think about things, the story we tell, that's going to have the biggest impact on your life, bigger than making a physical change, than changing a partner or changing your job or changing where you live.
Mm-hmm.
That can be all great, but if we can change the story we tell about ourselves, the thoughts that we have, that's going to have the biggest change, the biggest impact in our life long term.
Mm-hmm. Because our thoughts lead to our speech lead to our action, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like starting way back, and it's really an internal practice then, right?
Yeah, it's an internal practice. So if we wake up and we don't like the weather where we're living, we can say like, oh, I don't like the weather. I need to move somewhere else. But
Or you
then,
can just sit with the
or
discomfort
you
of
can
not
just
liking
say
the
like,
weather.
or you can just say like, I love the weather,
Yeah, you could.
and start to appreciate it. Because we can all think like at the end of our day, we could find 3 things that didn't go well that day and focus on those. Or we could find 3 things that did go well and that we're really grateful for. And both are true. It's just which one do we want to focus on?
Hmm.
Do we want to focus on, oh, we had a great day and we have a lot of gratitude in our life? And then we're going to appreciate things and that's going to spiral that way. Or do we want to focus on the negative and say like, oh, these things did not go well? And then we're in that negative thing and our life is negative.
But for me, I kind of like to like not roll over the challenge or the difficulty. I like to like witness it, notice it, but also notice the gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as long as we don't dwell in the negativity, that's where we have stagnancy
Mm-hmm.
or discomfort, you know? Yeah. So a gratitude practice, but also like honoring the difficult, just not dwelling there.
Yeah, and it's also even different perspectives. I'm like, okay, what was my challenge today?
Hmm.
Like how we phrase that. Like, what was the worst thing that happened to you today versus what was your challenge today? Or what are you growing? What was your growth point today? Like even how we frame that kind of like the more negative thing that happened to us,
Mm.
the negative emotions.
Very cool.
If we frame them as negative, then we're feeling that way. If we're feeling them as like, what were your growth points today?
Yeah. And then it's like an opportunity to how might you handle it differently in the future, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I had this thing. This is how I reacted. It felt really bad. And then just noticing that and then thinking like, if it comes up again, here's how I think I would like to address it differently
Mm-hmm.
or move through it differently or think about it differently. And then you can. But if you never think about, your challenge,
Mm-hmm.
then and only focus on gratitude, then maybe there won't be that like opportunity to see something that you didn't like. And it's okay not to like things, but then like how can you shift it for the next time is
Yeah.
where I think the real shift of
Mhm.
potential change comes from. So I would say go forth, find a thing you're excited about, shifting, get curious, you know, maybe have fun with it, find some support. You can do hard things. Thanks for tuning in to That's So Intimate. If this episode sparked something for you, hit subscribe and share it with someone you care about. We're growing this beautiful community, one conversation at a time.
Got a word or topic you want us to explore? Send us an email or find us on Instagram. We love hearing from you. We'll be back next week with more connection, curiosity, and intimate conversation.